given all that's going on in the UK right now, I thought it'd be helpful just to hop on here and make 4 key points about the riots and about hashtag enough is enough. And one thing is certain is that you are not going to fix a problem unless you can be honest about it. This has always been true in every walk of life. When I think back to my fat story where I put on 4 stone and lost it again to prove that you can change your life if you want to, you know, one of the big kind of messages from that show was, if you are going to sort a problem, you have to be brutally honest about it. And because the media and the government aren't prepared to be honest about the problem in the UK, and if anything, deflect and hide from it, we have no hope of solving it, which means Elon Musk is right. Civil war in the UK is inevitable because no one's willing to talk about the problem now, which means this is just the first in many cycles of what will keep happening in the UK until, you know, the very worst happens. So without honesty about the actual problem, we're never going to fix it. One of the other tools that's used so often by the media is to try and get one person that they can blame, one name, one individual. And right now, of course, that's Stephen or Tommy. And to give a really kind of trite example that feels like nothing to do with riots on the streets. But when there was this band in the UK called Little Mix, one of the singers in the band, Jessie Nelson, I think, whatever, was doing a documentary about her depression and how hard it had been in the spotlight and how dreadful it was and how she was always the one that was picked on. And the producer, director of that documentary saw an opportunity, which is, if you're going to make a documentary, it has to get headlines in order to get views. In order to get headlines, you need a name. So the documentary director used my name, Katie Hopkins. So at that point, the singer, Jessie Nelson, came out and said, well, the tweet that really pushed me over the edge, that tweet, the one tweet that nearly made me end my life, that was Katie Hopkins. And I say that, it seems completely unrelated, and of course it is, except that the media demands one name. Like in all good witch hunts or all good dramas or crime dramas or pantomimes, there's always one villain. And for Jessie Nelson and her documentary, it was me. And I know what happened when that spotlight turned on me being responsible for everything that ever happened to a band member from Little Mix. But for Tommy now, that means that he is fair game to be hunted, for his address to be given out, for his children to be pursued, for him not to be able to sleep at night because who knows what happens to him. And it's gone beyond the point of him being able to even give a care about himself because he knows it's over for him, but his family, his kids. So the media will always look for one name, one villain. And so even without being honest about the problem, whilst pretending to say what the problem is, which is far right, oh, look at all these white baddies, then the media is prepared to go as far as to give one name, one villain that represents all the far right white baddies so that everybody can focus their efforts on this one name. And it's a million miles away from getting to the root of the problem. Okay, point 3, the root of the problem. It's very easy. I'm tempted to draw an unhelpful graph. But here are all the riots happening in the street. Different groups fighting each other, pictures, you know, camera close-up. So if someone sets fire to a car, if you're there and watching this, as I have done so many times, you watch all the cameras gather around the picture of the burning car. There could be no one else there, but the media want the pictures of the burning car because that will sell, because that will get clicks, because that's what their editor wants. So anyway, you've got the street riots. There's an opportunity for really great images there from a picture desk perspective, and that will sell stories, and that will sell eyeballs, and that will get clicks, and that gets advertisers, and that gets revenues. So it's very convenient to imagine this is where the problem is. Enough is enough versus the Muslim mob with machetes, blah, blah, blah. But of course, that isn't the case. The truth about the problem is it's coming from top down. And for speaking of this, for showing this, I was completely eviscerated from the face of the earth and had to leave my own country for 5 years. And it's why I don't have a job. I don't own anything. I don't have anything. I couldn't have a bank account. I was removed from PayPal. I was banned from countries, banned from my own country. But anyway, the story is, of course, that it comes from here. It's heads of religions, all religions, that are pushing the movement of people. Heads of political groups, doesn't matter which one, Labour, Conservative, you name them, they're all here, Republican, Democrats, whatever. And heads of charities, or as they're called, NGOs, non-government organisations, they're all pushing the trade in human flesh, so modern slavery, but the movement of human flesh remains the most profitable industry that there is, I would argue, on the planet. And so these groups, heads of religious organisations, all of them, heads of political organisations, all of them, and heads of charities and the do-gooders and the white helmets and Save the Children and are all behind the concerted movement of flesh. And the payback for these guys, so why? Is power, money and power. Because from every pound of human flesh, I'm loath to draw scales here, but from every pound of human flesh, this lot get their kickback. So they get their kickback from contracts for moving people, contracts for housing people, contracts for feeding people, contracts for placing people, contracts for building homes for people, contracts for the hotels, contracts for the money flows backwards into charities, into political organisations, and specifically money flows backwards to religious groups. And with money is power. So the problem on the streets here has very little to do with, in fact, whatever's actually going on here, although how horrific it is and how horrific the stabbing of children and the rest of it. But the problem sits here with the very upper echelon and the upper hierarchy of who controls stuff. And the why behind that is money and power. And just to give one concrete example, is that when I was on the coast of Italy, on the south shores of Italy, documenting the ferries going to collect human flesh. That time I worked for Mail Online, one of their best read reader. I was documenting the movement of flesh across the Mediterranean, organised, coordinated, paid for, heads of churches and other religious organisations involved, charities involved, Save the Children. Who do you think it was that got me fired from my job at Mail Online? Because of that article, where I got too close to the pointing to the church and other religious groups and the Board of Deputies, Jewish organisations, and the Catholic churches and Catholic Charities Commission, and who do you think the letters came from to my editor? Chief Rabbi, Board of Deputies, Conservatives, Labour representatives. So that's where the actual problem lies. And there is good news on this. This is point 4, and it's my last point, and this has been way more than you're allowed to say. But the one good thing links back to what I said at the very start of this, is that if you don't address the problem and you're not honest about the problem, you won't find a solution. And the person that's highlighting this at the highest level with the most eyeballs, that beats everything else, is Twitter, is X, is Elon Musk. And when he says civil war is inevitable, when he calls out the 2-tier policing in the UK, when he shows to the world what's happening here, it is beyond the control of these people even. Because the marvellous thing about Elon Musk, and I don't care, you know, you're going to put on the comments, he's a member of them, he's one of them, electric cars, he's part of the problem. Right now, it doesn't matter, because he's absolutely part of the solution, because he's calling this out. And the beautiful thing about Elon Musk is he has his own money, so he isn't reliant on the payback. He's out of the chain of the payback, which all of these are funded kind of by the same game. So the push for power so that you get more money, so that you have more power, so you control more things, so you create more problems. It's in the interest of this church to make this happen, in the interest of this Jewish organisation to flood the UK. It's in the interest of this charity in order to flood the UK and provide boats across the Med. Elon Musk is untouchable because he doesn't need their money and he's not part of their power game. So there's hope. All of those things I've waited till now to say again. I said them all before, back in 2014-ish, and 10 years later, I'm back saying them again. And I'm on a slightly better footing this time because I'm not employed, I don't own anything. And more people over the last decade have started to wake up to what's going on. And I have to just keep pushing towards demanding that people become aware of what the actual problem is. Because until we can break free from the actual problem, we have no hope of finding a solution. And for the ignorants who think that pointing a finger at one guy who represents far-right white people, that is possibly the biggest deception you could ever possibly be part of at this time.